when I started writing these poems, there's a variety of styles in here. The one I'm going to start with is what I've started calling the distractor poem. And basically, what a distractor poem is that I take a standardized test, like the Alberta Diploma exam, and I take the questions out from the multiple choice section, and I use those questions to write new poems to go with. And the idea behind that is that each potential answer is entertained in some way so that it's plausible, but that is ultimately wrong.
In Alden Nolan's poem, Incident Observed While Picking Up the Mail, the poet's approach to the subject of the poem reflects A, an attitude of indifference to social conventions, B, the contrived nature of personal relationships, C, an empathetic view of a bittersweet moment, or D, the traditional aspects of a specific event. Approach the poet with caution. His attitude of indifference to social conventions reflects his sociopathic tendencies, as do the contrived nature of his personal relationships. This poet lacks empathy. All of his moments are bittersweet, unless they are simply bitter. He drinks black coffee because the taste of the specific brand of coffee whitener they traditionally use at these events leaves a chalky taste in his mouth. He eats sugar cubes on their own, not in his coffee. The subjects of his poems are always reflections of rippled shadows under moving water. The poet is a voyeur who parks near high schools and adjusts his rear-view mirror like a periscope to the sidewalk. He creeps into the classrooms and smooths out crumpled papers, shakes pencil shavings onto the floor. He steals his poetry from recycling bins and shredders, Scotch tapes strips of paper back together, scrapes gum from the undersides of desks. The poet takes burnt coffee from the pot and abuses the photocopier. He does not like to be questioned. This poem is called The Funeral in Her Brain. I felt a funeral in my brain, and the mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. Emily Dickinson, poem 340. I make my students recite poetry, and they hate me for it. They stand up in front of the class with their voices scratched like well-loved vinyl. They run the needle of their insight along the fine groove of the long-dead poet's vein and amplify a meaning that's been liquefied, warped, and reshaped into their version of that poet's pain. I felt a funeral in my brain when I heard Emily Dickinson's words scraped through the weariness of a 19-year-old girl whose father was killed 2 years ago, and whose mother alternates between getting dressed up for an evening at the VLTs or bald on the couch in the glow of infomercials, picking scabs on her forearms and plucking out the hairs from her scalp, one piece at a time, brushing over to let it grow. And mourners, to and fro, walk up and down the front steps, bringing beer and bourbon, wanting to break her mother out of that funk, but always leaving before it's time to dump the ashes down the sink and press wadded paper towels on the soggy, drink-soaked carpet. The friends who teamed in the night before all sifted themselves into the early morning drift of rumpled walkers, while the daughter, cleaning, tired, steamed, kept treading, till it seemed that her mother was just another stained blanket draped over the side of the couch, and that lunch would be stale bread and jam, and that the only sleep she might get would be on the C train ride into school that morning, on her way to English class. The poem crumpled in her hand. She proceeded to chew the skin around her nail until it bled, pressed the side of her face against the cool winter glass, and muttered Emily's lines methodically until she knew that sense was breaking through.
Filled with artwork that done by Anna Navarro, who was the cover design or the cover artist, and if you see inside the book, she's actually illustrated a full section, and the artwork is absolutely stunning. So I highly recommend picking it up. It's beautiful hand drawings to go with some of the poems. Yeah, it was a fantastic experience from start to finish, tremendously collaborative. Another thing that I've been doing with this book is basically just playing with the multiple choice test format in general. And I was having fun with creating test questions that went with the poems that I'd already written.